Welcome to our first virtual Downtown Development Authority meeting for April 15th, 2020. Madam Secretary, if you could clerk the roll. I know you're here someplace.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Present.
Mayor Bixson.
Here.
Tony LaPuma.
Here.
Bob Bloomingdale. Marilyn Trent. Where's Marilyn?
She's here.
Candace Van Slembrook.
Here.
Lisa Germani Williams.
Here.
Jason Rewald.
Here.
Chris Johnson.
Here.
Paul Haig.
Here.
Christian Hauser.
Here.
Ann Peterson is not here.
Here.
No, she's here.
Okay, there she is. Don Sinkowitz.
Here.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, there is a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for indulging us at our first virtual meeting. It's actually kind of fun using Zoom, so I feel like we're like the mega Brady Bunch right now. So I don't know who's going to be in the middle, but I guess we'll all find that out together. Few things. Being the first one, we're going to probably, this will be super clunky, so be patient. In terms of sort of Robert's rules and getting the dialogue going, the only way I'm going to know to call on you is if you do one of these numbers in the picture. I can see everybody, so if you want to speak on the issue, raise your hand. I'll put you in the queue and I'll call on you. Otherwise, we're going to be stepping all over each other, and it's going to be, while entertaining, I don't think it'll be very productive for everybody. So I wanted to make sure we did that. So I'm going to skip the Pledge of Allegiance only because I don't know how it would work with all of us sort of being at different bandwidths, and I don't have a flag in my house. So we'll skip that, knowing that we all love our country and we want, especially in these trying times, but I think we'll have to try and figure that one out. Did want to take a moment to, number one, thank all of our first responders and emergency workers that have been taking the heat for all of us, trying to keep us all safe and healthy. So to them, I tip my hat. I happen to live across from Crittenden Hospital, and the support that's been out front with people and signs and all that stuff has just been overwhelming. So no more proof positive this is the place to be, right? So wanted to tip my hat to those folks and thank them for their tireless efforts in that regard. We have a new member, Christian Hauser. Christian, welcome. So
Hi,
nice of you to join us. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. Christian we actually did a quick little test drive last night, so we chatted for a couple minutes. But Christian, if you could take a minute and sort of introduce yourself to the rest of the team, and then we can sort of let us know who you are and your background. I know you well, as do others here, but it might be beneficial to sort of get us all level set. So thank you.
Certainly, thank you, Ben, and hello again to everyone and to those who were not on the call yesterday. My name is Christian Hauser. I live over on 7th Street, not too far from the municipal park. My wife and I have lived here at this house for about 5 years. Previously, we lived over on Taylor Street for several years, and then I was over in Village Green, and then back in 2003, maybe moved out to where Stony Creek Ridge North is over there. So I've been in Rochester for quite some time. It's where we call home. We enjoy it very much. During the day, normally I'm an attorney. I have a practice over in Troy, and my primarily it's construction law, construction litigation. So I do all types of work in the construction industry, and that's it. I've got a wonderful wife and who's over at Royal Oak Beaumont. She's a nurse anesthetist up there, and then I have a son who is 15 years old over at the University of Detroit Jesuit, where Ben's sons go. So it's good. Go Cubs. That's right. So thank you very much for everyone to getting me on the board here. I'm very excited. I'm very eager, and whatever I can do to contribute, I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you took the call. When I found out that you were being nominated, I was super excited. So welcome. And I think that it's good to have another. So having an attorney and an accountant on the board is always good to kind of keep all the
never
puppies
have
in the
enough of them.
box.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's all right. So all right, we've gone through that. So as far as the general business agenda, I noticed that we did not have the liaison reports, but I did want to take a moment to introduce Don Sinkowitz, who has joined us as the Historical Commission liaison. So Don, if you could take a minute and kind of tell us a little bit about you and whatnot.
Sure. As you mentioned, I'm a member of the Historical Commission, and also I participate with the Heritage Day Festival team. Last year, I contributed by being the site manager for the festival, and then unfortunately, I would have been, or fortunately, I would have been the site manager this year, although we had to cancel it for obvious reasons.
Sure.
My family and I have lived in the Rochester area since 1990. The way I'll put it, we moved here from that state south of here, and I'll leave it at that. But I've worked in Rochester Hills and Auburn Hills the entire time that we've lived here in the mission in Rochester. We moved from Rochester Hills to Rochester in about the year 1998. So we've been here on West 3rd Street in the downtown area, which we love. And the kids, they've all moved on, but they love coming back to visit us. So, and I really enjoy participating with the city.
Well, I couldn't think of a better addition, especially for not just historical, but the fact that you live downtown as well. So that's awesome. So thank you for taking up the charge and keeping us informed of all things historical. So I think, so the next thing on the agenda is our general business and is dealing with the budget, but I want to take a minute, and I don't know if Stuart or Ann, if you guys want to kind of give us an update, what's going on at the city council wise. I know that you guys have had at least one of these meetings, so that I think went okay, but kind of, what's going on. There's not, we're sort of all, I don't want to say in the dark, but we're not as involved as you guys are on a regular basis. So.
Well, did you want me to start?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, whoever.
Okay. All right. Actually, yes, we have had 2 city council meetings so far. Both have gone very well. The virtual Zoom has been actually pretty easy to navigate for all of us to hold our meetings, so it's been good. City administration has worked really hard at getting the public access so they can call in or, ask questions as well. So that's all been great. On the agenda this past week, though, just to not go back 2 meetings, but just this recent one, so it'll update anyhow. We had extended the due dates and fees for the utility bills for penalties and interest. So those have been extended until the end of the month, so people can still pay and do those things without paying. We also extended the suspension of the parking fees, which you should know as well, through April 30th. We also had approved hazard pay for our essential workers, police and fire and DPW for any time that they go out. So there's an additional pay that is given to them when they're working to take care of us. We have also, let's see here. Well, of course, we have no construction going on at this point in time, but those things are moving along behind the scenes with anything that needs to be taken care of. Administration's been working really hard behind the scenes, and we're getting, still moving forward and progressing through all of this. Let me see what else was important. We actually went through and see the recommendation regarding some 2020 road resurfacing, which some of that will take place in the DDA area, and that's will be moving forward as time permits, etc. Let's see. One thought there was one more thing I didn't want to miss, but the other thing is we have also gotten a grant writer to help us navigate through some of these federal grants and things that are happening in with everything that has taken place. So that should help the city with the services, not bog them down, to have somebody else working on that for us to collect what we can and see where it can help, take care of us in the future. Right now we do have, we are having a deficit a little bit, as would be aware of, but the city is very financially sound. It just, we are losing, money with things that we're, foregoing right now. So
Yeah.
other than that, I think that's about it. And if there's anything I missed, Stuart can fill us in.
I think that was very good. Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
I was just going to say, yeah, the city is very strong financially, so that's a good thing. I think as a council, we are, until we see what's going on, we're really not going to do any new spending. And we're probably going to just approve a basic budget coming up. So, like everyone else, we're waiting to see what happens. And Anthony is, and I know he's talked to Blaine, is working on kind of a stress test to see, what's going on, what's worst case scenario looking back to 2007, 8, how much revenue we have and stuff. That's just something he and his staff are working on. So we're, trying to be proactive, like the DDA, but we're trying to be proactive in kind of getting ahead of this, and hopefully it's not too bad, but we're planning for it. And then I think the last thing was we're going to get a committee together to kind of reopening Rochester, and we're going to reach out to a lot of the organizations within the city and kind of look at, how does the OPC, how does the RARA open up with restaurants and stuff? How do they open up with social distancing, with wearing masks, with, all that? So just trying to kind of plan something. So when we do open up, we're ready to go.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Yeah, it's cool. Anybody have any questions for the mayor or for Ann? I would just say that, and of course, we want to help in as much as we possibly can. And a big chunk of the discussion we're going to have here tonight is with respect to what you just said at the end, Mr. Mayor, with, what happens trying to bring, everybody sort of back out of the caves that we've been locked in for the last, month and a half. We're going to be dealing with a lot of those issues. So, to the extent that, as you guys go through these things, I ask that you just involve, Christy, obviously more than anybody else, because from a sort of a messaging standpoint and that thing, she's been really on it. So we're ready to serve. Just let us know how we can help in that regard. Okay, onto the budget. So as the mayor had just mentioned, the city is passing a basic budget. From my 12 years on council, I think we had until the last meeting in May to pass the budget, if memory serves. So there's still a little bit of time there. But the discussion right now is that we as the DDA have to agree to what our budget is and then send that to council to get in the queue for their approval. So the discussion I wanted to have tonight was really sort of twofold. Number one, as Ann had mentioned a minute ago, the city has foregone parking fees through the end of April. The problem is that there's about $63,000 a month in debt service on the decks that we have to take care of, and the parking fund cannot handle that. So we're going to have that discussion in a moment. And then so right now, as we sit here trying to make these decisions in our COVID-19 environment, we're actually sitting between two budget years. So right now, April, May, and June are last year's budget or our current year's budget, and then July 1 forward is the new budget. So when we're talking about this discussion we're about to undertake with respect to the budget, kind of if you could, throw a line in the sand between 6/30/2020, we're dealing with two separate budgets. So the budget that's the current year for 6/30/2020, we obviously didn't make any accommodations for anything that we've talked about so far. So the executive committee has met at least once or twice. We've phone calls, and then we did one of our using my WebEx. It's not as fancy as this Zoom, but it works pretty good. But we have chatted, and one of the things that came out of that is in the memo that we're going to be talking about on this issue, but wanted to get some money over to the parking fund to service the debt. So my suggestion is that we've set a bunch of money aside for Front Porch Project. And while it breaks my heart to put that thing on hold we really have no choice right now, at least in my estimation. So that money that's been set aside, we're going to, in the budget amendment that's here before you for 6/30/2020, so the current year, is to take 3 months of that debt service and give it to the parking fund and have free parking continue through the end of June. The thought process is that when people come out of the caves, we want them to come downtown. We want to remove every impediment that there is to come back downtown. So that was the first thought process in that. So we can talk about that. And then the second thing was we thought it was important that we start putting some money aside to talk about how we get people to come back downtown. Once again, we're dealing with 2 separate fiscal years. So my thought was, all right, let's take $50,000 that was in capital for the front porch project and actually give that to the PSD to come up with a plan to deploy that money on what would they do if I gave you 150 grand over the course of 2 years to spend to get people to come back downtown. What would you do with it? So that's kind of where this discussion has got to this point. So right now, in looking at last year's budget, so our current year's budget, I should say, there's a memo here from Christy and Anthony, but in a sense, what we're asking for in this memo is to do the parking fund payment. So continue the free parking at least till the end of June, possibly further, depending on how long this thing drags out, but understanding it's 2 fiscal years. And then also authorizing the 50 grand for the PSD to come up with 150 over the course of 2 fiscal years, but to bring people back downtown, what does that look like? So I guess first things first, we need to have a discussion and come to some decision on the 6/30 stuff. So with respect to the parking, us amending the budget, taking money out of capital, it's about, well, it's 62,000. I don't know what's it's in Anthony's memo, 62, we'll call it 63 grand just for the sake of discussion. So taking that 3 months of 63 grand, so 180,000 and change out of capital and giving it to the parking fund to service debt for those 3 months while we still continue free parking. So that'd be the first thing. So I'll open the floor up to that discussion. Don't everybody rush at once.
All right, well, you're offering, all right, I'll say something. You're offering free parking, okay?
Yep.
And there's nobody out there parking anyway.
Well, yeah, we still got to service the debt, right? So,
yeah, we have to service the debt.
Yeah, I think it's a psychological thing, and then Christy can chime in anytime. But I think just saying that we've eliminated the parking fees downtown when people are allowed out of there. Once again, we're talking about what happens when the stone is moved away from the front of the cave and we're all let back out, right? So we want people to know that they're not going to have to. We're trying to encourage that sort of behavior. What are they going to come and park for? Is the next logical discussion, right? But I think no matter what happens, that $63,000 a month of debt service is going to happen whether we do something or not. And right now, the parking fund does not have that money. And I think it's because of where it's at and what it is. It feels like we're probably the best equipped to perpetuate that, both from a marketing standpoint and having set aside some cash to do it. So that's just my thought. Anybody else?
I would agree with that, Ben. It seems like the most reasonable thing to do. It's not ideal, but right. I think the psychological, when we ramp up and talk about doing some social media type of things to get people back to the city, that'll be a nice thing to be able to say that parking is free. So I think we're going to need to do that and other types of things to get people back and comfortable. And I think it's better to be on the cutting edge of that than behind it right now, in my opinion. And I think it's not ideal, but in this situation, it is what it is one of those things, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Tony?
Yeah, it's nice. So the people know the DDA is willing to work with the city. We are doing this for the people. And I think once things open up and with the social distancing, I've been thinking, what can we do to bring people to our town? One thing, I'm outside working and I'm thinking, it'd be nice if we have, we usually have the flower day at the market, the farmer's market. Why don't we do the flower day on Main Street. Let the people sell their flowers in front of all the different stores to kind of break the ice to get the people back out on Main Street again. Just an idea. I'm just thinking of things that bring people out.
Right. Yep. Nope. I agree. But as far as the parking goes, Christy, you had something you wanted your.
No, I was going to agree with that, because when we get into the presentation that my team and I put together for the marketing, I think parking, that's just an easy thing to just, like you said, remove any barrier from anybody coming down. I think, quite honestly, most people are going to expect free parking just because of the whole situation. But
Sure.
it's like Jason said, let's get in front of it and make it our idea instead of us being reactionary. Because I think everything we're doing up to now has to be reactionary because of the situation we're in. This is now our opportunity to start acting proactively. Got it.
All right, so I don't see any other hands up. So if anybody has any other thoughts on, at least on the parking part, I'm going to put this all together. So if there's anybody who's sort of against it, I guess I don't want to speak now if ever hold your peace, but we're going to be asked to take a vote here in a minute on both this and the 50 grand together as one amendment, or as one, thing for the existing budget. So if everybody's fundamentally okay with this, it feels like we've got sort of that. I'm not hearing anything, but I'm seeing a lot of this, so I think we're good. So the other part was with respect to the money part. So now would be, I think, a really good time to turn it over to Christy and Jenna and Taylor, and you guys kind of walk us through your thoughts as to, once the stone is moved from the front of the cave, what are we going to do to get people to come back down and see what's going on? So
sure.
Take it away.
If it's okay with everybody, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see the presentation that we put together, and then I'll walk everybody through it. So give me a second to get that where we need it to be. And come on, little guy. It's halfway there. There we go. All right. So, come on. All right, there we go. So I've been calling this our road to recovery. I guess that's the best way that I can put it, because I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. This is definitely going to be a recovery, but we've broken this down into what we think are 3 phases of what this is going to look like. So I want to go over what we're doing right now and also lay a little bit of foundational work of where we think we're going. So within the road to recovery, the 3 phases: crisis management, which is exactly what we're doing now. Phase 2, which is what I wanted, and phase 3 we'll talk about tonight. Phase 2 is embracing our new normal, because we all understand that there is going to be very different when we come out of this. And phase 3, our downtown and community stabilization. All of these things work in concert, and we're already starting it. But I think that we need to be aware of a few different things as we go there. When we started putting this together, I thought it was interesting. I'm like, wow, this really seems familiar, the things that I'm talking about. And I went back to the presentation from last summer about the front porch project, not the physical project, but the actual philosophy and the other things we are doing. And these are the 4 pillars of that. And I think you'll see through our presentation, we hit all 4 of these nonstop. It really seems like we laid the groundwork for this last year without even realizing it. So what we do know, we have businesses that are at risk. We've already had one close. I would like to think it's the last, but I'm going to be realistic and think that there may be some others coming. Consumers' habits will change. People have already had to change some things that they do, doing things they've never done before, and some of them have gotten used to different things. Health and wellness will be at the forefront. Everything that I'm reading right now is in trying to forecast what's going to be out there. Everybody's going to think about safety, things that they never thought about before, because not only are they going to be hypersensitive to it, but it's just a new lens that they'll be looking at things for the foreseeable future. Local will be highly desirable. This is where we will actually have an edge over many other people and businesses that are trying to get people to come back to shop, to eat, to do whatever. People are not going to be super comfortable going too far from home for a little while. They're going to want to stay local. And I think that's an advantage that we can play to get more people to come back. If they're going to go out, that we can get them to go downtown. The other piece is that we think, and we're already seeing it, a lot of our merchants have been great and have been able to pivot and start offering online delivery services, curbside, all those things that a month ago they would have never thought of. I think that demand now, that once you had it, now they're interested in it. So I think that we're going to need to be working with our merchants to meet those demands for the online, the curbside, and the delivery services that I think people have come to expect from downtown and now would like to see expand and continue. But of course, we know what we do know, but what we don't know. We don't know our official open for business date yet. Of course, that'll change in the next couple of weeks. So that's sort of a moving target with anything that we're talking about tonight. The reason I mentioned this in the next one, when downtown will be 100% open, just because we are going to be open. They say, okay, by this date, here's the restrictions, but you can reopen. That doesn't mean everyone's going to be able to pop right open. The businesses that have 1 or 2 employees that they're owner operated, yeah, they can probably get right back up. People that have multiple people that work for them, restaurants that shut down and have not been doing any kind of carry out. I mean, people have to reorder, they have to get things, they have to get their people back. So we have to think when we're doing promotions, it'd be great to say, oh, we're going to do this big bang up festival on X date, but we need to make sure we get everybody back open to benefit from it. So we have to think about those 2 things. And of course, there's going to be social distancing restrictions, we believe, gathering restrictions potentially, and then required safety measures. You know, we were talking about farmers market today because that's going to be our first event out of the chute if we are able to continue, and what that looks like and what the restrictions would be so that we could open and operate safely. Farmers markets are an essential service. We're not going for opening day, obviously, because that would be May 2nd. But Taylor's been talking with the farmers and letting them know that we are on top of it. And at the earliest date that we can possibly open safely, we intend to do that. But again, all these what we don't knows, everything you're going to see in our presentation tonight, we have it split into marketing and business development. The marketing things need to be a little bit more fluid and adaptable because of these things, whereas the things for business development are a lot more solid and have a good foundation that we can build on. So starting with crisis management, this is just, I'll do a brief recap of what we've been doing so far. I mean, literally, we got sort of thrown in the deep end of the pool here trying to figure out what to do. So we really started with working with the businesses. We set up a Facebook group. We started emailing like crazy people. We have been engaging with them 24/7. I think we kind of broke down that barrier of the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 thing, and everyone knows where to find us and how to find us now, but that's been really good. The other thing that we started is with Love Local Rochester. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this popping up in your social. This was something that we actually had kind of been talking about up to this point before the pandemic, but this just made us say, okay, maybe it's time to pull the trigger on that. So we threw this together super quick. This was something on our first executive committee call that first week that I said, can I have, a little pocket money to do something? They said, go ahead. We did this. It instantly got traction. People really seem to enjoy it. So we've really built on this Love Local Rochester brand with these types of things. So we started doing weekly promotions. It started with the Great American Takeout, which I think people may have heard of. That was at the very beginning of this. This was done by a national restaurant group trying to get people to carry out food. So we did that, but they're like, well, if we're doing that, maybe there's more that we can do. And we actually expanded, like today is Workout Wednesday. And so we had Rochester School of Martial Arts did this kick and workout that was amazing. We had Pilates this morning. Last week we had a ballet class. But then we have $30 on Thursday, flash sale Fridays, Sunday fun day, but something every day to try and build up the merchants and to appeal to a different demographic, which I think going forward, that may be a lot of what we have to do is continue to do a lot of niche, because it seems to certain things work for some and not for others. So we have to try and make sure that we have a full spectrum. But in addition to helping out the businesses, we also wanted to embrace the community. So we've been hosting a few other things on our page. Downtown Book Club is coming, so I'll tell you what that is in a second. We did a Sunday Fun Day. We share things that we partnered with Paint Creek, and they're doing art classes online for us. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we did Chalk the Walk, asking people to send us photos of their sidewalk chalk. And we got tons. We're actually going to try and put something in the magazine, so showcasing a bunch of those. And then this last week, it was National Pet Day on Saturday. So we did a For Pet's Sake and asked people to submit photos of their pets. I think my daughter's hamster was the cutest, but that's neither here nor there. But we had over 100 people do that with us. So we feel like we've already been making those inroads and connections with the community. And I think that's important, because if we went radio silent and did nothing up to this point, I think you'd find that when we do start coming out, the stone is moved and we start coming out, people are going to be a lot more open to us as opposed to anybody else, because we're the people that have been holding their hands going through this, putting the smiles on their faces, working with other things within the city, which I'll get to later. Downtown Book Club is a new one. We asked people to give us book recommendations with a photo of themselves with their book. And so we have a bunch of those that were submitted. So those will start rolling out this weekend, kind of doing a little Downtown Book Club. So that was a little something extra that we had put together. So we've been laying groundwork right now, but we know that there's a lot more that has to go. So I'm going to turn things over to Jenna and Taylor, and they're going to take over this phase. And I think we're leading off with Jenna.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jenna.
So, Road to Recovery, embracing the new normal. Events from the events and promotion side, as Christy mentioned, we won't be able to jump right into large events, and we'll need to ease our community back into what is a new normal for us. She also mentioned that we've been working on daily promotions, and we've already rolled out a few, but we want to continue these promotions in the next coming months. We found that Takeout Tuesday and Flash Sale Friday have been pretty successful and effective. We've had a lot of great response from our merchants as well as patrons. So those are two daily promotions we want to, continue with. And then we're obviously also willing to create new daily promotions as things evolve, bring people to town, and to also keep our community engaged with different activities that they can do and post on social media. The monthly event guide, it is what it sounds like. Internally, we've been talking about this for quite some time, that we would create a monthly event guide that included our events and promotions. We would be able to distribute them to merchants for them to have in their businesses, where patrons can have something tangible to take home with them to know what's happening in town. What's cool with the monthly event guide, we can also put it on our social media pages and our website. So people, our followers, can also be in the know of what's happening in town.
And Jen, we could also, with that, the merchants can submit in-store events that they might have going on, and we can include that since it would be a monthly piece.
Yes, of course. So that's another bonus of connecting everyone and keeping everyone in the know of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Happy Thoughts. We rolled Happy Thoughts out at sidewalk sales last year. The purpose was to have a surprise and delight effect on our community. So as you see there's a large stick. It was a temporary sticker we stuck on side of buildings and sidewalks. That one's on the side of Lidl's. I'm not sure if you happen to see it at sidewalk sales last year, but we had also several others. One said, "Don't forget to be awesome." Another one said, "Spread love." Just uplifting sayings and things that people will come across that kind of give them that warm, fuzzy feeling that they didn't expect to see. And then we found that people were posting the pictures of the stickers with just the sticker itself, or maybe with themselves and the sticker on our social media pages. So we're hoping that we can continue to do this, but for a full month. We hope that, spreading the word that we have these stickers in town, these, warm, fuzzy feelings, that people will come downtown to search for them and maybe take a picture with it and post it on their own page. And it's just a nice initiative to welcome people back to town. So another event that we hope to roll out when the time is right is our Love Local Block Party. A block party is a great time for people to gather, and it would consist of food, entertainment, music, and of course, shopping. We want to continue to welcome back our community in a warm, fuzzy way that, and to celebrate our merchants, our town, and celebrate finally being back after the time we've all been cooped up in our, homes and apartments and things like that. So, like we said, when the time is right, we hope to roll out this block party.
And we're hoping that when we say love local, in addition to tying in with the brand, we want everything to be hyper local. All the musicians will be local, artists will be local. Obviously focusing on our restaurants, focusing on our merchants. We want it to be everything you love about Rochester in one event.
Yes.
All right.
And then the Welcome Home campaign.
Sorry, Tony, I didn't ask permission.
I keep
Do you have a talent release from Tony on that one? We need a talent release.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so our Welcome Home campaign, I keep saying warm and fuzzy because it's the feeling we do want to convey to our community, so we all remember why we love Rochester. We've heard many times that we know that Rochester feels like home to so many people, whether you work in Rochester, live in Rochester, visit Rochester. We have that home vibe feeling. So with the Welcome Home campaign, we're looking to roll out images of iconic people that are from Rochester, like the Pumas. And then we'll stick on the Love Local logo. And it's just a nice way to welcome people back to town, saying we're here, we're ready to see you again, we've missed you. This campaign can be on our social media again, but it also can be in our In-Town magazine that Taylor's going to touch on a little more now.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Sorry, Tony. I only have so many pictures.
The Tony effect.
That's actually, we should sum it up. The way we're going to save town, Tony and Bill LaPuma.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's right.
People would buy it.
No pressure, guys. No pressure. Don't screw it up, right?
That's a great shot. God.
Yeah.
Look at Nick. That's a great shot.
It's one of our favorites. He hates it.
It's a horrible shot. It's a great shot, Nick.
It is a great shot.
All right, go ahead, Tay.
Yeah, Taylor, go.
So I'm sure everyone is familiar with our In-Town magazine. Obviously, this is something that we publish twice a year, 43,000 homes to Rochester, Rochester Hills, and some other surrounding areas. Typically for the summer issue, we go to print about mid to end of March, which, as we all might remember a couple weeks ago, intersected with the first stay-at-home order. So at that time, we decided to hit the pause button and hold off on printing our usual summer in town, just in hopes to see what would happen in the next couple weeks. Obviously, it expanded much more than we, I think, ever imagined. And I think it's pretty fair to say that we publish a lot of event dates in this magazine, our events and other organizations included. So it was probably for the best that we didn't publish a bunch of inaccurate event dates. So we're happy on the other side of this to say that we didn't go to print at that time, but kind of taking advantage of that situation, making, lemonade out of lemons, we're looking and hoping to spend a little extra time, maybe a little extra dollars to produce a more substantial magazine and add some additional content when we are looking at kind of this post-coronavirus new way of life. And so some of that kind of addressing how it's affected our downtown Rochester community, businesses and patrons. This is also a great opportunity to advertise some of the new promotions that Jenna just mentioned. So including the Welcome Home campaign, including all those pillars in the community, advertising hopefully what would be a Love Local festival, and as well as that campaign that we're continually rolling out, or brand, I should say. And then most importantly, including what would be some human interest stories. We want to highlight those in the community that have found ways to stay busy and positive during this time. So like the Chalk the Walk promotion that we saw on our Facebook page, we want to highlight that those people, in these vibrant colors and positive words, were able to, find some light during this time. As Christy made mention, we also want to highlight these businesses that have charted really this unknown territory at this time with online websites, curbside and delivery. A lot of our businesses, maybe weren't doing that before the situation. And so the fact that they've been able to do it so quickly, I think is amazing. And we need to recognize that their ability to kind of overcome, hopefully, this, situation at this time.
And I also think with the magazine too, if you look at our whole calendar, Big Bright is really our juggernaut of our event side. The magazine is the juggernaut of our marketing side. And the fact that we luckily made the decision to pull it, I think that we have a great opportunity to get this in people's hands with a new story, new narrative, and to promote all the new initiatives that we want to do. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Real quick question, if I might poke my head in. What from the time that you create it to the time it's printed and mailed, what is the time frame that we're looking at? If you guys had everything ready to go, like at the end of next week, I'm just picking a number out of thin air. What is the time that it gets from that point, gets printed and then mailed? Because nobody's going anywhere. It would be nice to have that. You know what I'm saying? Right. So
it is about 3 weeks by the time it goes to the printer, gets printed, and then they send it on over to the post office. So
got it. So roughly a month.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just sort of occurred to me.
It is kind of a logistic piece that we're trying to figure out in terms of when do we pull the trigger on some things. So, but yeah.
Got it. Valid. Okay, cool.
Another piece of our community is the farmers market. And as Christy touched on, with this new normal that we're looking at, people are looking for health and wellness, and we feel kind of blessed and have an advantage that we have a established gathering place in the community that already focuses on that topic. As Christy kind of made mention, a lot of this ties into the concept of the Front Porch Project that she presented here at DDA last year. And something that we discussed in there that we find very kind of applicable as, at this time as well is what we talked about was the POP Club, which stands for Power of Produce Club. For anyone that maybe doesn't remember or is not familiar, it's a program that originated out of Oregon City, Oregon, their farmers market there. It exploded and gained a lot of recognition that the national organization, the Farmers Market Coalition, has since adopted it and has been able to kind of distribute the concept to markets nationally, which is great. But a little synopsis is that the POP Club empowers children ages 6 to 12 to make healthy food choices by participating and attending educational activities, cooking demonstrations. As an incentive for completing those activities, markets give market currency for children to be able to make purchases at the market, specifically fruits, vegetables, plants and herbs. So really reinforcing healthy living and healthy habits. We think this would be a great incentive for people to come to the market, with their children and as families, because it's very, at a specific time, very scheduled activities. We'd run it for a duration of time to really get people mission driven to the farmers market. As well, we think, the farmers market is a great place to kind of re-engage the community once this is all lifted, being that we know that consumers will change their habits. We're looking at a place that's open air and is spread out, and so I think those are going to be appealing things coming out of this situation, as well as we are looking at not only children's activities but adult kind of incentives. So on our social media pages, we've made mention of the Workout Wednesday and its success. I think this is something that we want to try to continue as we move forward, but also in person at our farmers markets, a way to, get these small fitness studios to re-engage with the community, customers, make them more visible to people that maybe have forgotten about them over this time, or, just haven't been able to be dedicated to their health and wellness. And so offering fitness demonstrations more regularly at the farmers market, once again, appealing, because we're open air, spread out, and able to, chat with our neighbors and friends in these situations. And as well, another thing that we had found through a market elsewhere.
Baltimore.
What was that?
Baltimore.
They were a really great idea of doing appreciation days at the market. So taking the time out to show extra love for those nurses, teachers, first responders that have worked so hard, during this time, and doing a giveaway especially for them, or something extra special at the market, whether it be giving them something or finding a way to just say our thanks as a community for what they've done.
Awesome. Thanks, Tay.
Yeah.
So those are some things that we want to do in the short term, because those are great opportunities that we can take advantage of right now. But as we all have been saying, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And so I've been trying to figure out what that looks like. And so I actually am going to take everybody in the Wayback Machine for 1 second, because this is sort of relevant to where we're going now. Everybody remember this one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I can't tell you how many people, merchants, have said to me, well, just do what you did during Main Street Makeover. You got us through that. Right. But I was able to give you guys 18 months notice, and people weren't avoiding downtown because they couldn't leave their homes. They were avoiding downtown because they were annoyed by the construction. Very different situations. But then as I started looking a little bit deeper as to what we did to see if I could cherry pick anything out of Main Street Makeover, I found a few things. So what's interesting about Main Street Makeover, and I was reminded of it as I started doing my research, Main Street Makeover actually started at the end of March So interesting timeline, and wrapped up the week before Lanyap. So if you really look at the timeline that I'm going to be talking about now, that really is the main timeline that I'm focusing on right now, what we need to do, because I have this idea in my head that if we can stabilize our businesses, and I'm going to get into how we're going to do that in a moment, but if we can continue to do the work we've been doing in phase 1, take it through phase 2, and get the businesses at least to the point that they are okay, if we can carry them through with all these things we're going to talk about in a second, to get them up to holiday, I would like to think that, barring any of outside factors, we would be able to get people to come back downtown for the holidays. I think by that point, any residual resistance to wanting to be in crowds, any of these things, provided that the virus is completely gone, I think that holiday is our best play. And like I said, that's what happened for Main Street Makeover, accelerating that learning curve. We did that with Big Bright. I think we can do the exact same thing again, but the key is that we need to get there. So there were a couple things that we did during Main Street Makeover that I thought were interesting. One thing, and Nick will remember this, the city had decided they were going to hire an ombudsman, someone that was going to be a PR person that would go out and talk to the merchants, find out what their concerns were, and be a liaison back to the construction people, to MDOT, whomever. As Nick and I talked about it, we decided we didn't think that was really going to be a great expenditure of money, because we knew all the merchants, and if somebody had a problem, they weren't going to call this new person they didn't know. They were going to call me, or they were going to call Nick. So we went to James at the time and said, you know what, let us do that. And he said, well, you can't do that unless you give up the rest of what you're doing for the summer. So we told him that we did. We kind of did, we kind of didn't. But basically, Nick and I spent our whole summer just bird dogging the Main Street project. And that was really the best decision that we ever made, because we were on top of things. We had people comfortable because they knew us and they knew that we would help them through it. And it was a really good thing. And the other thing that we did that was a great plus, and it was something that they told us from MDOT, they'd never heard of this, but they use this philosophy now, is that we made it a requirement of the contract to have a field office, a place where people could go, ask questions, see drawings. Usually there was somebody in there either from the city or my office or MDOT or the construction guys or the inspectors, somebody that they could talk to and ask questions, and that people connection. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about. So here comes, since we've never gone through anything like what we're going through now, I feel like we can't do anything that we've ever done before, which is leading me to this. I would like to open a downtown community studio in a vacant space on Main Street. It would be a place to reinvent and to reconnect. It would be a short-term 6-month pop-up place where we would be able to work with both the community and the businesses to get them where they need to be, so that when we come to the holiday season, we can hit it with all cylinders. And there's 2 lenses I want you guys to look at this with. The first one is with the merchants. We can do guru chats. We can do business workshops, B2B events, monthly roundtables, table talk. Have this open door philosophy, because what we've established over the last 4 or 5 weeks with the businesses, we have an ongoing dialogue with them. They're comfortable with us. They're talking to us. They're telling us what their problems are. They're telling us what their needs are, and we're helping them. We need to continue that, because all the things that we talked about at the beginning of this new normal, the delivery, the curbside, the online, it's going to be a different world for people. And we need, if we want to keep our businesses, we need to help them through it. It's just like you talk about customers. It's cheaper to keep an existing customer than it is to go get a new one. Trust me, Nick and I will be the first ones to tell you, it's a lot easier to keep one of our businesses than to let a business falter if we can help it. And then we have to go find a new business. And I don't even know what that business recruitment is going to look like in this new normal for a little while. I don't know that anybody's going to be running to come into any of our spaces right out of the gate. So I think there's a merchant side to it. And I'm going to get back to this table in a second, because there's a piece with that. Then for the community, we could be a community resource. People could come in, talk to us, see what's going on. Merchants could have things in our windows there that we could be displaying for them so people know what's going on, have their materials, maybe even offer it to nonprofits if they want to give us some of their things that they have going on. I think that if people are going to be reluctant to go a lot of the places they used to go, if we can have everything in a hub in one place that they can find it, why wouldn't they come to that one place they're comfortable with, right down on Main Street? We can do pop-up events for merchants. We can have merchant marketing opportunities. Like I was saying, we can have things in store. We can have things in the windows. We've already been talking, and we've had requests for the Love Local Rochester brand that people want merch. We can do that, and that might help offset the cost of doing a short-term lease on a building downtown. inspiring those connections. At the end of the day, this all has to be about people. There's no way we're making it through this without it being about the people, the merchants, the community, everybody together. And then I like calling it breaking the fourth wall. People, I want to show them that behind the scenes of what we do to make downtown go. I think they'd get a kick out of it. We could build our festival trees there before we take them over to Community House rather than having to drag them up and down the steps at my place. There's ways that we can do to engage the community, see posed behind the scenes, see a lot of other things that we do, see deck art behind the scenes to see what all of this looks like. The reason there's a table there, and I'm hoping, did Bob Bloomingdale hop on the call yet? Is Bob here? Bob? Not yet? Okay. So I talked to Bob today. What I want, go back to that one that says table talk, I want this community table, something that Bob and I have been talking about because Ben had actually given the office the green light to do a little bit of remodeling, replacing our desks from 1984 and things like that. And he'd given me a budget. One of the things we're looking at is a conference room table, because right now our conference room table legs are literally glued together. It's highly unsafe, but we're on a budget. What are we going to do? And that's the original DDA table from 1983. But so I talked to Bob about using Rochester Salvage and actually building us a table that is salvaged wood from the Rochester community. So when I talked to him today, I said, here's what I really want. I said, I want a community table, and this table is going to be at the very front of our space. And when people want to talk and they need something, they're going to come in, and that table is going to be there, and we're going to be there. And coffee's always going to be on, and we're going to be there to help people through. It's going to be a comfortable space, but it's going to be a working space where we can bring in workshops and all these different things that we want to do to bring these two groups together and to get everybody comfortable. Is it sexy? Is it glamorous? I don't know, but I think it's what we need. I think it's more, we can do the block parties. We can do all this stuff. You know me, I'll throw a party anytime y'all want, but I think this is something that we need. So the question is, of course, oh, Christy, that's cool. How you do that? Well, let me tell you. So this would actually be staffed and managed by my team. And then I'm sure we're going to have some volunteers that'll start rotating in with us. I already reached out to Maester Oakland County, and I just kind of took the liberty of doing this. I canceled mine and Jenna's Disney Institute thing, as much as it broke my heart. But with that funding, plus we were going to be bringing in somebody to do window display training this summer. I don't think that's what we need right this second. Between those two things, and I asked John if we could then use those funds to help with this, I've already gotten $10,000 to help us fund this. Whether we use that for trainings, help to offset rent. I know that some of the money we were talking about going to PSD, I think it could be, some of it could be pared back to go to business development to program this space and do things. We create a monthly programming calendar. We're doing hands-on. We're going to do surveys of businesses through business development. We're going to go door to door, find out where people are and what they need. And then we're going to bring it to them. And I'd really love if everyone loves this idea. And I know it's a lot that I'm dropping on top of you, because I always like to walk that edge between terrifying you and exciting you. I hope I did a good job of staying on that edge on this one. But I just really feel like this is the big swing we need to take. And if everybody's on board, and I know there's a lot of logistics before we sleep that we could actually make this happen, I think we could get it up and running by June 1. Mm-hmm. So one final thought, and then I'll go for questions. I know I'm scaring
go. No, you're fine. Go.
Okay.
Everybody's like, what? Everybody's still on? Right. No.
Yeah. So one last thing. This is one of my favorite quotes. There's no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. I think our community cares about our downtown. I think our downtown cares about our community. And I think that by creating a place that we can come together with that philosophy, I don't know how we can't make this through this together. So those are my thoughts as I see them. I'm going to stop the share now and pull everybody back here. There we go.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So thank you, ladies, for that. Outstanding work as usual. So the bar is always high and never fail to disappoint. I couldn't agree more with respect to we've never done this before, so we're sort of inventing this on the fly, as it were. So I think I'll save my comments to the end, but I'll just open it up to the floor. Anybody that wants to kind of give a general bounce as to the overall thoughts here, and then we'll eventually pull it back to the budget that we had talked about. But the first one to raise his hand is Don there, so feel free to, Mr. Don.
Oh, yes. First, the presentation was very well done, very informative. Communications, as we all know, is key, whether it's in the business world or in the individual world as well. The question I would have have is this presentation going to be available to, say, the other commissions and committees to review? Will it be online? Or?
If it gets approved by this board,
Yeah.
then yes. So
yeah,
but
you got to get past the firewall first, Don. So
Yeah.
that would be us, right? So
it depends on what this board says about it. But whatever we would finally do, usually it's our intent. Once we go here, then we go on the road. Usually our next stop would be City Council, and just give them an update on what we're doing. But certainly it's already a part of this presentation. But I can certainly send it to you, provided that whatever gets approved tonight. Because I certainly don't want anything out there that isn't actually going to happen.
yeah. So Don, just real quick on process, right? So we control our budget to the extent of the recommendations we make to council, but at the end of the day, city council decides what we can do and what we can't do with respect to the money that we spend. It's generally usually an up or down, yes, you can do that. These budget amendments taken as a whole, or no, you can't. So there's this is not a done deal by any means, but when the executive committee had challenged Christy and her team to come back with some ideas to sort of pull us out of the funk, and this was their first cut. And I'm looking for everybody in the group, obviously, to engage in the dialogue, to come to some sort of consensus as to direction. But yes, absolutely, we got to go to all the boards and commissions with this once we get it. Once we decide what it is, then the road show will commence. And Christy and her team, nobody's better at the road show than those guys. So, Marilyn.
Having worked with downtown businesses for off and on, for over the years, I think this is an excellent idea, Christy. I think there's a lot of bang for your buck. I like the idea of you showing that there's volunteers. I mean, I could volunteer, come in and give some advice. I've been helping Lana from Who to just come up with a trade way to just help her get her shop up online, and just could see that it's really one-on-one that's going to help the merchants get up online and how to market if they just don't have that experience. And I think that you're right. You've built some trust and some rapport that I think that they would be really thrilled or some of them, if they take advantage, and then, you get a case study out there and then build on that, it's just a wonderful resource. And also to keep one of those empty spaces that's going to happen open for a while. So anyway, I've got, if I had 3 thumbs, I'd say 3 thumbs up.
Very good. Anybody else?
Anne's had her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And I know the mayor, a couple things here. Number one, I think it was a great presentation. It was very positive for what we've been facing. I like the ingenuity that's going into it and the items that you've touched on. I would like, if the mayor in the moment, if we could actually have this presentation, as you said, at council, because I think that the positive that's coming out of this, that you're pulling from so many different areas, is something that we truly do need. I think it's great. And I love the leased space idea. I think that is something that I think of a welcome center. And I think that's what we've been missing. But you've put the twist on it that makes the welcome center sound like not as cool as what you're wanting to do now, right, with this space. And I think this is something that, for seriously, even though we don't know where times are going to go, I think it's something that should really stay at the forefront moving forward to enhance the downtown. And really, that one-on-one that Marilyn was talking about is so important, because that's where you get those connections to know these businesses who have given their all are going to cherish this one-on-one and every opportunity that we have to help support them. So thank you so much for a really awesome presentation. I think that this would be something that by far surpasses everything. So it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Paul.
I just want to thank Christy for all she's done for the businesses downtown. I think this presentation is great, and I think we should follow through with it. And I just say thank you, and I'm glad to be part of this group.
Here, here.
Thank you. I've got a really great team, Jen and Tay and I, and they are working hard. And trust me, we're texting
I
each
can
other,
see that.
you know, Saturday night. Everybody's working really hard. So Jen and Taylor are absolutely all a part of this, what's happening right here.
For sure. Chef?
Again, great job to all of you, and thanks, Christy. Everybody thanks you, of course. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that pooling resources is going to be the key to recovery for everybody, merchants especially. The information is coming so fast and everything's changing so much. And like you said, the new normal, we don't know what it is yet, really. So I think having a place where everybody can come together and pool resources, information is the key to stabilizing. But thumbs up.
Thank you.
Here, here. Candace, sorry. There you go.
That's okay. Great job, ladies. It was an amazing presentation. I wanted to also give you guys a lot of credit for the new brand. You guys have done an amazing job on social media. I have tried to include myself and spread the word on that brand as well. It has been such a positive reinforcement that we have needed. And of course, social media is where everybody's at right now, being that we are all home. So kudos and good job with that. Secondly, love the storefront idea, love being in front of all of the merchants, the community, and bringing everybody together. I like the idea, like Ann had said, of having a welcome community center, should we call it, and being able to walk in, ask questions, be a part of the community as much as we possibly can, and show our support. I'm in full support of.
Here, here. Definitely. Anybody else? Oh, Miss Lisa, please. Oh, your mute's on, I think. Lisa, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yes,
I
no worries.
second everything that Candace just said, in addition to all of the comments. And again, you guys always just come up with these presentations that are smart, have so many great ideas that are always positive. And with each slide, I'm like, yes, she nailed this. Like, of course you guys thought of this. So really, seriously, kudos to you guys. And I love the idea of like this little central hub too. It sounds awesome. Totally on board. 3 thumbs.
You're here. Anybody else? Okay. So just my takeaways, obviously, like everybody else said, throw a challenge down to the team and they will knock it out of the park every single time. So thanks a ton. It occurred to me as we were going through this discussion, the number one thing that we're going to have to overcome is psychology of people being afraid. And in sensing that and creating that sense of it's okay, right? So having a central place to do that, I think, is important. So a few things occurred to me as you guys were going through the thing. One of which was a place to do events like the farmers market. Since we're paying for the parking decks, why don't we take advantage of them and maybe do some events there, bring the farmers market in, expand it. Then you can do your physical exercise challenges and social distancing and all that stuff. So maybe we'll tie a little carrot. Yeah, we'll pay for the decks for the next 6 months, but we need to use them for events for X number of days or whatever. But I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I think it's important that we could utilize that because it's fresh air, it's open, it's out. You could have the top floor and whatever.
Well,
so
fun fact, the East Deck is actually engineered for events. When they were building those, you have to engineer them differently to hold people than cars, which I found interesting. But the East Deck not only was engineered to accommodate people, it was also engineered with water and electrical drops where I need them for events. Did I mention I might have helped with that?
I think that yes, it's the why I love you so much is it's always better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So we can kind of do it, and we all sort of get it at the end. So all right, so that's great. So I just wanted to throw that out there. To the extent you guys are starting to put together these events, feel free to think outside of the box. You always do, but in this case, I think utilizing the East Deck, it would be fantastic. Of course, we would need to get the requisite permissions from council and everything else. But as you start pitching these ideas and sort of putting some more perfume on that presentation, be thinking in that way would be one of my suggestions. Chris, I really, my biggest concern for our downtown is how do we support our restaurants? That's going to be the hardest thing. And I know you guys have been just decimated by this. And Tony also, but I mean more so on the full service restaurants that rely on, nighttime dining and liquor sales and all that stuff. You guys have just been killed. So I really want to be very, very mindful of how we're trying to focus on everybody. I don't want to, but I think it's important that we show extra love to you guys. So maybe if you take a minute to kind of walk us through where your head's been at and sort of, I know you've been thinking about this stuff, sure, or maybe you're not.
But more than you know, I'll tell you that much. So I got a couple of quotes I think you'd appreciate, Mr. Chairman. One being that the recovery, and reopening is going to be more like turning a dial on a dimmer than it is flicking a switch. So, and like you said, ramping up and getting our patrons and community to kind of dip their toe in the water a little bit to start. And with that, I think I love the idea of a big event and a big draw, but I don't know that we can do that. And I don't know if anybody's going to be comfortable with that. So I think, with Christy and the gals, for lack of a better term, creating like micro experiences. You like that, Christy?
I love
micro
that.
experiences.
I like micro experiences.
And that moves into when we get those opportunities to create those experiences, being a beacon of hope and creating positive emotional experiences for people. So, but I think like just getting back in action is number one. And as far as restaurants go, like I was talking about pooling resources, I mean, there is a lot of things are going to change. Restructuring menus is going to have to happen. The carryout is not going to stop either. We're not known for being a carryout place like Cruise, for instance, but we've got to develop menus that are going to work for that long term because it's what's going to happen. I mean, from a childcare perspective to homeschooling, I mean, that's not going to be done in the next month or 2 months, really. But I think getting together with everybody, like the resource center, I think is an awesome idea for us all to pool ideas and technology. And I think a lot of it too is going to come down to like infrastructure for e-commerce. I mean, and simplifying the way people can order from home and so forth too. It's something we've never done. Like you said, we're full service, dine in. It's just going to take time to build, and I think we've got to be intelligent and utilize our resources to try and develop that business again.
Yeah.
My guess is that we're probably occupancies are going to be cut everywhere, I would think, out of the gate by 50%, I would think. Would everybody agree with that? Just like they did the first week?
Probably.
So it's going to take time to build up that volume. But other than that, I think it's communicating with everybody, looking at the technology that's in front of us. And then when we get the opportunities to touch those guests and create experiences, doing the best we can do.
Touch them in a socially responsible distancing way, right? So
exactly, of course.
Jenna's got something she wanted to add.
I'm sorry.
Jenna's got something she wanted to add.
Oh yeah, go. Sorry.
Speaking of restaurants and how to help restaurants, it's actually on our event calendar currently that we were going to roll out a promotion called Taste of Fall. With what's been going on lately, we were talking internally, maybe this would be a sooner promotion that will happen before fall, where restaurants sign up to promote, whether it's a cocktail, a dessert, entree, something like that we would put in a brochure that we would encourage our diners, our patrons to come down to try each of these, whether it's like a fun dessert from the Meeting House or a coney from La Puma, something like that, where it will engage our community to want to try to hit all of these restaurants to be back and that they're back in business now.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, I know Sue's probably been on this, between Sue and Christy, the two sisters from different mothers. I'm sure she's been on it, but you guys obviously have been just exponentially hammered just because of the sheer size and scope of everything. But just curious what maybe your thoughts are, what the hotel's thoughts are as to how it's going to sort of ease back into it. Not knowing, of course, what the rules are, but I'm sure you guys are probably giving a little bit of thought.
Yeah, and we're just starting to get there, but it's probably going to be, like Chris said, it's not going to be a light switch that we're just going to turn on here. So it's probably going to start slow. The restaurant for us isn't a big deal. It's really about getting people in beds. Heads in beds is always the saying we use. So it'll be interesting what happens with that. The new normal, I think, is going to affect us. It concerns me a little about, all the go-to meeting, the Zoom meeting we're doing right here. A lot of our business is automotive companies, business type settings coming in, renting conference rooms and flying people in from out of state, out of country. We have concerns that will change, but I also think people are going to be a little pent up. I know I am a little bit. And once we can do some things, Christy, I love your presentation. I think the more we can do to be proactive and on the upside of that's going to be a big deal, I think, because I think it's going to build momentum. Like, hey, did you hear about what Rochester's doing? And, Rochester has this storefront that you can go to, and they're giving their merchants, and their merchants are now, doing this or this cleaning protocol, or they have this going on. And I think that type of momentum is going to ease people into that comfort zone to start getting out again. But at the hotel, we'll see. It's hard to say. We're affected a lot more by the big businesses, so we're going to be a little bit more hampered with just the protocols and the new normals on what people are allowed to do more than even the business itself. So we're thinking about that, but it's a hard target to hit right now. But I think the one thing we have is like Tony, and it's kind of become a staple of Rochester. So I think it's going to start with the local presence that's going to carry us, and people are going to support that, and we're hoping to build off of that. But I am optimistic that long term things could heat up quickly if it goes well, right? It's just hard to say here, but I am optimistic that people want to get out, people want to do stuff. There was so much going on before this happened. I'm optimistic we're going to get back. It's just a matter of when. But again, it's going to start with the local support, and Christy's been good about that, and very conscious, in the whole board. So we're going to need that. We got to continue that, which is why I think everything we've talked about today is important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it didn't even occur to me, but the lion's share of your guys' businesses, banquets and, weddings and all that stuff is just going to be, so yeah, it's going to be a dimmer switch. That's actually a great analogy. It's just turning up just a little bit at a time, but it's really going to be.
I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to steal that, Chris.
Yeah, but it's getting people's confidence that it's okay. Don't worry. But the thing that we don't know is, and you had brought this up, Jay, is on the cleaning protocols and all that stuff. So part of our thing to help the merchants on is creating this environment where people feel when they walk into a store that it's safe, and or to a restaurant. I was sort of joking with Christy and Chris a little earlier that the DDA should buy a bunch of those igloos. And then we could put them out on Main Street with like a tube in them, and then we could have the sanitized air, and everybody can do outdoor dining. But I think it feels like the outdoor dining part, I think, will be helpful. It feels like maybe we could ask the city to keep parking spaces in front of the restaurants, no parking, or for delivery, pick carry out delivery, those kind of things to help facilitate, the carry out. So I would encourage you guys to sort of be thinking outside the box in that as you do it. I love the idea of the appreciation days, socking some money aside within the budget to incent, people to come downtown and do stuff, and especially take care of those who've been taking care of us. I think that's money well spent. I did. So do you have a space in mind?
I might.
I know you do. I might, of course. It's
yes,
like, what's the old saying, Kristen, about a lawyer? Never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Right?
So, yes, I think I may have mentioned to everybody, James and Olive has made the decision not to renew their lease, but in speaking with them, they had actually kind of already made that decision. They were just debating whether or not they were going to try and get through holiday or to shut it off. They actually have an amazing online presence, and they've just decided that the storefront isn't making as much sense for them anymore. So James and Olive is on the 400 block. It's next to Greens. It's about 2,500 square feet. I was really hoping it would be a nice space that ideally, and what I was thinking of, so that we wouldn't have to do anything to, that we could just move in with our stuff, and then 6 months later, we're going to move right back out. I already talked to Marty, who owns the building. He was DDA chair for 18 years, and I reminded him of that when I was asking him about this. He is willing to play ball with us on the lease. I already opened with, I can't pay full rent. He didn't love that, but he understands. And he's willing to work with us. It's a great building. It's a great space. It's exactly where we need it to be. I also spoke with him about at Main Street Makeover, the deal that we made with Roger Knapp, because that was the space, that field office during Main Street Makeover is where Tallulah Bell is now. And we actively were marketing that space while we were occupying it. And we actually got Tallulah Bell into that space so that when we vacated, he had a space. And I told Marty we would obviously try to do the same for him. No guarantees because we don't know what this environment's going to look like. But we would be actively trying to market that space so that when we go, he would have a tenant for that space. So he is very open. I told him that I really couldn't go any further until I talked to the board tonight and see where everybody is. But he said to go ahead and let everybody know that he's interested in working with us.
All right, so it feels, and anybody else can chime in, but it feels to me we need to start seeing some numbers. So let's get a a budget together on that. I'd like to see a copy of what the 6-month lease looks like because of course the devil's always in the details, right? So and then we'll put that together along with. So when we go before council to pitch this idea, I want the first question is going to be, all right, how much? And so I want us to make sure that this has been well thought out and we've sort of walked all the way around it. So the thought process, so backing the truck up to the very start of this agenda item was with respect to the budget. So what we're talking about now is reapportioning monies that are already set aside for the capital project for front porch that are not going to be spent this year on capital. It's now going to be put into this marketing and for lack of a better descriptor, starting our recovery center, right? I mean, it's bringing people out in a place to sort of help the businesses and our residents and everybody just sort of start feeling better about, life after being in the cave. So that was 50 grand to PSD. It feels like your ask, Christy, now is to have sort of bifurcate that out, have part of it go to PSD, or do you want it to all go promotions? And you guys let me know how that goes.
I'd like to split it because I really feel like the studio is going to be more of a business development thing, and that's DDA all the way. So I'd rather, once I get the budget together, maybe split that out.
Okay.
And then but I would like to split it between the two because honestly, for the next couple months, I don't know how much promotion PSD can actually do beyond magazine and some other things. I don't know that the event program is going to be there.
So I guess let me know on the magazine. It feels like because people are sort of in, and that would be, people look forward to that. I know that, but especially when you're home and you're sort of, the highlight of my day lately has been walking out to the mailbox. So that's when I'm starting to realize that retirement's not going to be so great. But when the highlight of my day is getting off my butt and going out to the mailbox. But that notwithstanding, I think that that'll be a prime opportunity to kind of let people know we're being proactive. This is, we can't wait to open it back up. We're going to be respectful. We're going to do it slow. This is an unprecedented time. Maybe having a statement from the mayor in there, all of this, the things to kind of make, people start to feel better about things, right? And things to look forward to. But I love the idea of, expanding farmers market, taking over East Deck, doing events there, all of that stuff. So my ask right now, since I can't make motions, would be to have somebody make a motion to amend the 2020 DDA budget to authorize 3 months of capital, of debt service to be reallocated from capital to the parking fund in the amounts of 62,973 times 3. So I'm not doing math now, Anthony, I'm punched out, but that dollar amount. And then also to direct $25,000 to business development and 25 grand to PSD. Is that fair?
Yep.
So that'll at least get us going. That way you can start to make the pitch to council. Before you go to council, though, make sure that we've got our I's dotted and T's crossed, because we're going to only get one chance to get this right. So, but I can't make motions. So anybody else?
I'll make that motion. State it as you just stated it.
Okay, great. And second? Support. All right, Lisa supports. So I think because it's a budget amendment, it's a roll call vote. So Madam Secretary, the roll.
Paul Haig,
Yes.
Chris Johnson,
Yes.
Jason Ringwald,
Yes.
Lisa Germani Williams,
Yes.
Candace Van Slimbrook,
Yes.
Marilyn Trent,
Yes.
Tony LaPuma,
Yes.
Mayor Bixon,
Yes.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Yes.
Motion.
That would be a unanimous.
Oh, I'm sorry, Christian Hauser.
Oh, sorry, Christian. Yeah, see, I'm sorry. Poor Christian. I'm like, so this what happens when you're the new guy. You're always sort of at the
still
back of
paying
the bus. So
attention.
we
Yeah.
apologize. We'll call on
That's
you
okay.
first next time, right?
That's all right.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say I support this, Ben, and you know, as long as you want to continue to pay the rent, you can do anything you want in those parking lots. So, but I think it's good the DDA is doing that, because to me it shows like a commitment to the city to help out in these difficult times, and you know, I think obviously having free parking. My one comment about the presentation is, you know, to me it's all about safety and people's comfort. And, you know, like the farmers market, I would imagine people want to hear about how safe is it going to be? What are the precautions that are going on? Not just what's there. Same with the restaurant, you know, not a free, you know, burger, but what's the precaution? Are there going to be face masks? Is it going to be, I mean, to me, that's the whole thing that we really need to focus on, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
We talked about that somewhat, but I think that really needs to be one of the key focuses, because, you know, all of us who go out to dinner all the time, boy, all of a sudden now, you know, well, what's the restaurant I used to go to all the time? What are they doing? You know, I want to know before I go back.
Yeah, I think
That's going to be the real key.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think that as the state starts to open up, the rules are going to be defined by others, and we're just going to have to comply with them. I can see going to the meeting house right now, lifting up my max to hit my beer and then put it back down, right? So we'll have to sort of figure out how that all goes. But yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And I think that psychological part is going to be the biggest thing. So as you know, and I know the staff knows that, so we're absolutely aware of it and cognizant of it, and I couldn't agree more. Okay, also, so this would be 5B on the agenda. We kind of did A and C combined, but I wanted to have that pitch be part of the discussion because it was germane. But the 2021 budget. So before you is the 2021 budget that we were working on before everything blew up. So as it stood when we were going through the discussion, we had fully intended on going and figuring out how we were going to pay for the front porch project on the farmers market lot. It was an ambitious project. It was finally all the years we've been socking money away. It was finally our time. It's still a great idea, and it's still going to happen. I'm confident of it. But you know, sort of here we are trying to deal with, you know, the hand the Lord has dealt us. So so the budget that's before you now is how we left it in February, the last time we were together sort of talking about it. But since then, the executive committee has had discussions. And so two things. Number one, the budget that's there is how we had done it before, as I said, and knowing that it's not going to get passed until May. So there's still some time to, you know, to sort of finalize it. But the city is doing a basic budget and then sort of looking at things after the dust settles, as it were. We're probably going to be doing the same thing. In fact, we will be. But how our budget will work is that our revenues are going to be X number of dollars, and how much we spend is Y number of dollars. And that difference is either going to be, you know, zero, meaning we got a balanced budget, or if it's more, if we spend more than we take in, that's a deficit. And if we spend less, then it's, you know, it's going to go to fund balance. So as it stands right now, we had set aside another $250 this year in the budget for front porch. That's not going to happen. So in discussion with the executive committee, I'm trying to think ahead. So we're talking about the period June, July, August, September, October, November, December, kind of getting through the balance of the year. So July forward is the next year's budget. We may come to find out that this free parking issue has to carry on through the summer because of people coming out slow. The dimmer switch is going slower. So I want us to be prepared to have this $63,000 a month to service the debt continue on maybe through September. So 3 months in the current year and then 3 months in next year's budget, which we would normally be spending on capital, will now be going to pay for parking to continue the free parking downtown. We'll play it by ear, but that's kind of the direction. That's the one thing. The big thing, though, that I want to have a discussion with the board on is the suspension of the PSD assessment. So it's a big one. It's not a small matter. As you know, or maybe Kristen, I think you probably do know, but the PSD is a separate and distinct body from the Downtown Development Authority. It is a separate tax assessment on merchants and property owners in the district based on, you know, location and whatnot. But it's about $275,000 if memory serves, somewhere in that area. Yes. So, or almost 300 grand. So the thought is that to help merchants out and, you know, help merchants out is we suspend that for this year and take that money, which would normally be capital, and actually continue to fund the PSD because we need to fund the promotions. But that money would not be collected from merchants and landowners in the district. The thought is that would be something we could do to help, you know, lessen the blow a little bit, and it would be a goodwill gesture. I don't want to set the expectation as something we're going to do every year for going forward, right? But in these unprecedented times, I think, and I understand that I don't know the mechanics of it. I don't know how it would work in process. I would, you know, lean heavily on, you know, the city attorney and the administration to kind of come back and say, hey, look, if you guys decided to do this, this is what it might look like. But the idea is that rather than spend that money on capital, we would be making an investment, but be making that investment in our businesses and in our community to help them sort of get back on their feet. So with that, I'll just kind of throw up the 2021 budget ideas, and anybody has any thoughts, please feel free to, Marilyn.
Howdy. Just a quick one. Do we know how many landlords there are that actually own the building or are renting them out to merchants? Having said that, the reason I'm asking is that sometimes the landlord may get that tax break, but they might not pass it on to their tenant.
Yes.
That's my
Yeah.
question. Maybe Christy can answer, because then you get into the discussion with them that the tenants have some things to say about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about this. Christy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Marilyn, you absolutely hit it on the head. And this is something that I've been trying to figure out how we would do this. I almost think it would be an education process of the merchants so that if they are not the ones paying the PSD, it's rolled into their rent, or that the landlords pass along separately. Because I think at the end of the day, yeah, we want to help properties, but we want to get the money back into the hands of the merchants. And that's the sticky part of trying to figure out how to make this work. Because I know, like, my landlord, he doesn't charge any of his tenants PSD. Okay, cool. That's not the case with everybody else.
No.
So it's a case by case basis. So I'm not quite sure how to, and Ben, what do you call it? Making sausage?
Yes.
The PSD is a big old sausage factory. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that thing.
Well, right. So what's the percentage? Like, are 90% or 80% are landlords that rent out to the tenants, or do
The majority? There's very few owner occupied. I mean, I could probably count on, maybe 10.
Yeah, like Janet Varner, Paul. Hey,
well,
Paul,
Janet doesn't own her space.
Oh, I thought she did.
Oh no, like Paul, Tony, they own their spaces. But as I'm walking down the street right now, just kind of thinking in my head, because Lytle, they own the building, but that they have a tenant now. Yep, Chris owns his building.
Yeah, so what I'm
but it's not as many as you'd think. Most are by landlord.
Yeah, and so if there is another way to take that money to help the merchants, so you have more control over it, to say, hey, we are going to now take this money and then make it even a bigger splash, or get more accolades and appreciation, and be able to do more with it than to try to depend on the landlords.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a landlord, not
right.
downtown, but I'm just saying, a disclaimer.
Yeah. No, I know. And we did talk about that. It's super hard to legislate morality. And we really want to try and encourage, people to understand the spirit and the intent. And I would say, for the most part, most landlords would look at that for what it is, to to refund, and then you're going to have the situation where, you know, you know, if a business leaves, you know, who do I give the money to, that sort of thing. So we're never going to be able to do a one size fits all approach on this one. And I'm totally open to other ways to skin the cat. My thought is that this is a gesture that the DDA is making to try and help at least put some money back in the pockets of, you know, merchants, and knowing that, you know, obviously the PSD assessment is much higher because of their you know, size and whatnot, but it's just it feels like a goodwill gesture. So right now it's not
like one. You're right, it does feel like one, but to make it actually be one, it takes some, you know, working with the numbers and looking at them and saying, okay, is it $1,000 that you're putting back in the landlord's hands? I mean, there's like, are we talking 500 or 1,500?
Depends on the
In my
building.
case, you're talking about 1,400. So
Yeah, like it, but like the hotel is one of the ones that's capped, so that's 10,000.
Yeah.
Well, then that,
So,
you know,
so that it depends on the space, depends on the landlord. So
yeah, I'm not. Okay. I don't want to. We could really get bogged down in that, and to the extent, you know, a landlord decides not to pass along to their tenant, that probably speaks more volumes about the landlord than it does anything else. So, shame is a powerful tool. So perhaps that's where we find solace in it. But this is more of a statement of support from us as a governing body to those in the district that, you know, we recognize that, you know, this is not gone without. And understand $1,400 to Paul, and I'm not trying to, but it's not a ton of cash. It's
right,
material, right. But it's more of, you know, the statement that it makes. So that's just a
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, and I just bring it up for that goodwill gesture to at least say that this is what we've done as a community, and we're making our investment back into our, you know, downtown that way. So, anybody else have any thoughts on it, Mr. Mayor?
I think it's a nice gesture, so I would support that. My only comment would be maybe to not take it out of capital improvements, because we need to continue to do that, but maybe take it out of the fund balance.
Yeah, they're kind of the same. The way we've been carrying it, the fund balance has become sort of the holding tank for the front porch project. So, yes, agreed. Yeah, for sure. They're both going to come out of the same place, but point taken.
Thank you.
Ann?
Yes, thank you, Ben. You know, I think that at this point in time, this is probably one of the best things we could do for all these business owners. We have heard so much about small business losing, and, you know, the only relief are some of these loans if you can get them. So I just think every little bit that we can do will help, and it will actually also play right into the plan laid out by Christy earlier, you know, so I think it's probably one of the best things we could do for this community. They've gone through a lot from Main Street makeover and everything, and now with things so there's no determination of what's going to happen in the future. I'm 100% in agreement.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. And then lastly so we had thought about in the executive committee, the discussion was 150 grand for sort of additional marketing and promotional efforts. The 50,000 we just talked about for in last year's budget. So I'm talking about 100 for this one. So it feels like, knowing that we're probably going to amend the budget 10 times between now and then, but it feels like, Anthony, if we were to put together a budget that would do, so the amendment for 2020 you've got, so this would be for 2021. So let's recraft the budget where we have the PSD assessment being, I don't know if it's waived or what that process is. I'm going to ask you guys to kind of help us through what the mechanism is. So get with Crocked or whoever and let us know how we do it, but just know that that's our intent to refund or to, you know, pay it on behalf of, or whatever that looks like. Just let us know, but put that in the budget. I mean, would you want it to split the 100 between 50 and 50 between biz dev and PSD to be specifically used for promotional efforts? And then in order to get approval on those things, we'll have to see the budget, obviously, but we'll set that aside now as sort of the earmark. It's not.
I don't know if I'll need that much for biz development, but I feel like let's do it now and then we can shift things around later if we need to.
Okay. Yeah. So the idea there is we got 25 grand set aside for this James and Olive, recovery center, if you will, and then sort of going into the next step. So that and then what else was there? And then also too, Anthony, 3 months of debt service, so July, August, and September. So 63, the 62.9, whatever it is for July, August, and September. So that way it'll get us through the summer with free parking. Once again, we may get to the point where we all of a sudden see we're back to normal. They've discovered a cure for COVID-19, and everybody's like, yeah, Shakespeare for everyone, and there's drunken debauchery in the streets. Then we'll have to open up the alcohol detox centers, which we probably need anyway. But
I've got a space now already. It's fine.
Yeah, right. So let's set it with, so let's do 3 months. So that way we're saying as the DDA, our intent is to get free parking through the summer, to get us kind of slowly coming back out of the shell, to do the spend between BizDev and PSD specifically designated for events to promote the return to normalcy downtown. And Chrissy will come back to us with what that budget looks like before we authorize the spend. This is just a placeholder for that for now. And then the PSD assessment. So does that sound like a good, is any cut at the budget to send over to council for their consideration?
Hey, this is Anthony. Yes, on the budget that was sent to you guys with all those amendments, that is all in the 2021 projected column. So we have the PSD in lieu, and we did talk with Attorney Crott. It's essentially, the semantics of it are, you're just increasing from the 150,000 a year to this new number this year, and coincidentally, we're also asking council then to suspend the assessment for this year. Is how he said. So we're good on the legality side of that, if you wish to go forward with it. And then the additional debt service funding is in those amounts as a transfer to the auto parking fund. And then also the $100,000, if we need to split that right now, that's in there as going to PSD, but if it's split or we need to take any out.
Leave it all in BizDev for now, and then Christy will tell us once they get it. We can just move it over, I think.
Yeah.
Probably.
So number wise, those are all in there, and then you'll have the net at the end. There's one current year project, the amount for the mill and fill for this proposed for the summer that needs to. I had it in the budget, but I forgot to put it in the memo line. So if there's a chance in miscellaneous or something to ask for or to talk about that one for the current budget year, then I think we'll be in good shape.
Okay. All right. So you'll go ahead and recraft all of the 2021, send it over to Christy and me so we can take a quick peek at it, and then flip it over the fence to council for their consideration at their next meeting.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, cool. And then, all right. So, and what Anthony just brought up, I'm sorry, Christy, go ahead.
That's okay. Anthony, for council, so are they going to be reviewing this budget on the 27th then?
Correct.
Okay. So Ben, do you want me to try and get numbers together for the space before that? And do we want to do this presentation there? Because if we're asking for things that are going to be in the budget, I feel like they're going to want to see the deck.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be another one of these meetings, right? So if you guys, I mean, of course, we'll do whatever we need to do. I know it's the 15th already, so no time like the present. It's not like we're going anywhere, so I guess we can we'll have some time to get it going. So yeah, I mean, if we can get it going for the last meeting in April for council, that'd be great.
Okay. All right.
All right. Cool. Yep. And then what Anthony just brought up a moment ago, so at the infrastructure committee, there was Sandy had mentioned some other projects that we're trying to do, one of which is the mill and fill, and that's what Anthony just brought up. So we also need to amend the budget for this year, or we're going to put it in the 2021 budget. Anthony?
Well, that's Ajax is going to be starting it in June, pending, welcome to whatever infrastructure gets postponed or not. Either way, it's more of looking for the authorization to spend that amount. It very well may be in the next budget, but as long as you guys are okay with that spend, if it hits this year, it'll be put to this year. If it hits next year, it'll be put to next year.
Yeah, we had actually had this money sort of set aside. It's just being moved forward. What was the total dollar amount? I don't have it in front of me.
I have it here. It was if we add everything together from Pine Street and the new ask, it's $365,000. If it was all in the current year, and there was $225,000 budgeted.
Right, so it'd be about $100,000 adjustment, of which would roll into next year. So it's going to come out of fund balancing anyway. So yeah, go ahead and put it in. Do you need a motion from us to go ahead and authorize that, or is?
Yes, please, and it can be with the rest of the. Well, actually, we already did the 20. I'm sorry, we already did the current year. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I can't make motions, so if anybody else would care to, go right ahead.
And the motion would be to adjust the streets infrastructure budget to 365,923 from 225,000.
Okay, anybody?
I'll make a motion per Anthony's description.
Okay, so a motion by Jason Rewald, support.
Support.
Support by Marilyn Trent. Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Christian Hauser.
Yes, I had to unmute. Sorry. Yes.
Paul Haig.
Yes.
Chris Johnson.
Yes.
Lisa Germani Williams.
Yes.
Jason Rewald.
Yes.
Marilyn Trent.
Yes.
Candace Van Slembrook.
Yes.
Tony LaPuma.
Yes.
Mayor Bixson.
Yes.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Yes. Motion carries. Very good. All right. I think so. Anthony, you've got sufficient direction. You guys know in both years. So before it gets on council's agenda in the packet, flip it over to us and let's just make sure that we got our I's dotted and T's crossed. So and let me know how I can help in that regard. I'm always here. In fact, I'm, like I said, going nowhere. So plenty of time to help. All right, so that brings us to miscellaneous. Anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? Marilyn, please.
Just a quick thing. On Wednesdays, the chamber has a weekly conference call called the Members Conference Call Update. And what I wanted to do was thank Stuart and Christy for consistently being on these calls and showing their support and collaboration with the chamber. It means a lot to us. And also we have Brian Barnett on there and other leaders that give us updates and talk to, and there's a lot of businesses on the line. And we have speakers. And today we had Jason. So thank you, Jason. It was very well done. I really learned a lot. You got a lot of good tips and tricks on what you're doing, not really tricks, but tips and insights on what you're doing to keep your company and your employees staying positive and really being honest about, being transparent with them and things like that. So it was very good. So I wanted to thank you guys. It's been very, very, very nice to see that. And I know it takes time because it's like you're very busy people. So thanks again.
Hear, hear. And blessed by riches in this community of all you guys. Looking at everybody's smiling face for the time, energy, effort, and life force you dedicate to us. So anybody else have any parting words of wisdom for all of your fellow cohorts that are locked in their caves? No, I think we're good. All right, so Christy, I think you have sufficient direction on as to next steps, getting ready for council. Put some more meat on the bone on your presentation. We'll kind of go through that, and then we're looking forward to seeing people at the council meeting on the 27th, is it? And we'll go from there. So with that, with no other issues, I'm looking, nobody's raising their hand. So with that, thank you for your service. Thank you for putting up with us, and meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Everybody.
You, good night.
Thanks, guys.
Night, everybody.
Thanks, appreciate it.